So thinking back on it now, I had just started high school when the earthquakes arrived. Once or twice I woke up from them. They weren't anything big, especially compared to the ones we had heard about in California. And everybody would talk about it too. Nothing too serious, some cracks in sidewalks, some pictures falling down from the wall. But this wasn't California, this was Oklahoma. Tornadoes, sure, we knew to expect them every single year, how to take cover for them. But earthquakes? Earthquakes, something had changed, and it had definitely changed for the worse. It wouldn't be until a few years later that the researchers found evidence for what everybody seemed to know. We now had earthquakes in Oklahoma because of what the oil and gas companies were doing to our earth. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, there was a significant jump in earthquakes beginning in 2009, and the majority of them were caused by wastewater disposal, a process that comes from increased oil extraction. Our commitment to taking more and more oil wasn't just hurting our planet and climate in the future, it was having a direct impact right now on my family and my communities. Fast forward to today, and just about every week, there is more devastating news about the state of our planet. There are, of course, the big scientific reports warning us, screaming at us that we must do something. And there are the increasing number of natural disasters all over the world and right here in New York. We can still remember the impact of Hurricane Sandy and flooding and tornado warnings in recent years. With all of this, plus a government that has acted in some ways but not truly sufficiently, it is easy to feel stuck or, even worse, hopeless. But things don't have to be this way. In the words of marine biologist Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, what would our world look like if we got this right? If we truly invested in the work of protecting our planet? So one way for us to get there, one way for us to get this right, doesn't require any new technology, but actually comes from thousands of years ago in our Torah. In Parashat Bahar, one of our 2 Torah portions this week, we read about this radical practice called Shemitah, or release. Sheish Shanim, 6 years you may sow your field, and 6 years you may prune your vineyard and gather in the yield. Uvashana hashvi'it Shabbat Shabbaton. But in the 7th year, the land shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, a Sabbath of Adonai. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. Just as we humans have Shabbat, a complete day of rest each week, so too for our earth. 6 years we work hard to produce and create, and in the 7th year we allow the land, this precious earth of ours, to rest, to experience a whole year of renewal and release from the obligations of productivity that have only increased with extreme capitalism. Sforno, one of our commentators from the 16th century, notes that this should not just be a passive year of release, but one in which we intentionally release our urge to be productive so that we can focus on the most important things in our lives, our relationships, our learning, our process of becoming our best selves while in right relationship with the land. In the early stages of constructing a new society for the Israelites, care for the land through the Shemitah year was at the very center, both for the sake of the land and for the sake of us. So what could the Shemitah year look like in the 21st century, especially when most of us, I won't say all, but most of us do not regularly sow fields or prune vineyards? For the Israelites, agricultural work was the most taxing burden on the planet. It was necessary, but taxing. So now, in the modern day, we could look at oil and gas extraction, destruction of habitats, and the burning of fossil fuels as equivalents. And what could it look like to decrease or stop those practices during this time of Shemitah, of release? The next Shemitah year will be in 5789, starting with Rosh Hashanah in 2028. Now, if the next one doesn't start for 5 more years, why should we even be talking about this right now? Because, just like the Israelites planned in advance for the Shemitah year, we need to prepare. We don't just get to move into a Shemitah year and start our work there. We must be building towards something. So if we are to truly mark that year as a celebration of release, of reprieve, of restoring of rights and love to our earth, what do we need to do in the next 5 years? What do we need to get right in the next 5 years? In a strange and scary coincidence, by the time the next Shemitah year ends, it will almost be 2030, a year that many climate scientists view as a critical marker for slowing the rise in global average temperatures. If we don't do our work, it is at this time that all of the most challenging impacts of climate change will almost be too difficult to handle in the future. So, we must start planning. And just like the Israelites, in which the Shemitah year applied to everyone, we must act collectively. Leaders here at CBE have already started some of this work, including advocacy to implement more climate-conscious policies throughout the state of New York, and the CBE Dayenu team is working hard on a climate finance strategy, working with Jewish institutions to pressure large banks to stop them from funding billions of dollars worth of fossil fuel expansion projects. The work has started, and we need more people to join because we can't wait for the Shemitah year to begin this work. The time for collective action is right now. Even with these ways to collectively respond with people here at CBE and with other organizations, it can feel hard to mobilize. And yet, in this moment, I return to the framing of Dr. Johnson. What if we get this right? We can't settle for transition. Getting this right means transformation, a world transformed for the better. So let's imagine that future together for a moment. If we get this right, imagine healthy, thriving communities all over the world. A world where everyone has what they need to thrive. Imagine fewer natural disasters and more nature parks. Fewer extinction of animals and more revitalized habitats. Less fear and trembling about our world and more resiliency and confidence for the world that we are building. In the preparation for and the practice of the Shemitah year, our Torah has given us an incredible tool to protect and cherish our planet. But for that glorious year that starts in 5 years, for that glorious year of rest for the land to be realized, the work has to start now. We can get this right. We can get this right to build that transformed future that we all imagine. All of us, all together. Shabbat Shalom.